Santa.
Ha ho ho ho! Yeah! It's me, buddy!
Who the heck are you?
What are you talking about? I'm Santa Claus.
No, you're not.
Of course I am! Ho 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 ho!
If you're Santa, what song did I sing for you on your birthday this year?
Happy birthday, of course!
You sit on a throne of lies.
Welcome to Retraction. Jamie, what is on the agenda for this week?
Folks, it's another holiday episode, and this time we're breaking Christmas, deconstructing it, if you will, by asking the question, is Christmas a pagan holiday? So,
that's interesting.
Get ready for the Christmas time timeline.
Christmas time timeline. Okay. All right. I like the alliteration. I prefer Christmas time, Christmas open sandwich, because you were like, it's a deconstruction. So it's like all that is an open face sandwich, right? But anyway, go on.
You be the judge. You tell me.
That's all this.
So, folks, for many cultures throughout history, the start of the new year coincides with the winter solstice. But what is the solstice? Well, it's the day that the sun starts coming back. The days start getting longer. After the longest night and shortest day of the year, it's thought that the sun god is reborn or recovers from an illness. Now, many cultures also celebrate this event during the spring equinox, which is when a day and night are equal. However it's celebrated, it's thought that a sun god powers up, which is often symbolized with the birth of a divine child, giving believers a relatable rebirth of the natural world. And when a baby is used, it's often referred to as the baby new year. These aren't just anomalous facts. They will come into play later on, so I just wanted to get them out of the way. Now,
I learned something new. I'd say I had no idea that that's where that came from. I'm actually, my mind is blown because I just assumed it was either some sort of commercial, a marketing thing from like a couple of ad execs in like the 20s or 30s or something like that. I had no idea that a baby that it went back that far. Anyway, I'll let you go.
I'm going to just tell everyone up front, this entire episode is packed with stuff like that. So keep listening. All right. So before we get started, I find it important to acknowledge the cross-cultural pollination that took place in antiquity, because we're going to go pretty far back to start. Civilizations and cultures influenced one another. When it comes to exchanging ideas and beliefs, the interconnectivity cannot be understated. Ancient peoples were aware of one another, right? None of this stuff happened in a vacuum. It wasn't siloed. And they had an extensive trade economy as well as a complex diplomatic system, meaning what we often see is new belief systems popping up that are evolutions of what came before, coexisting for a while, then often replacing them entirely. So, without further ado, let's get started. The year is 2500 BC. That's right, we're starting that far back. The ancient Egyptians worship a sun god called Ra. At the solstice, when Ra recovers from his illness, right, because the sun is fading, getting shorter and shorter and shorter, the Egyptians filled their homes with green palms and papyrus reeds, which symbolized for them the triumph of life over death. Please note the color and meaning, green and life. Let's keep going, right? This is going to be a timeline, Christmas time timeline. In 1500 BC, we travel to Persia, where Mithra is worshipped as the god of the sun, mediator of interpersonal communications, contracts, and a justice champion. Some might even say a savior. It's at this time that Mithra is first mentioned in a cuneiform tablet that contains a treaty between the Hittites and the Mitanni, where Mithra is invoked as a god, as the god of oath, but the god is likely much, much older. Now, remember Mithra. You can kind of forget everything else, but remember Mithra, as he'll come back into play later in our timeline, right? So that was 1500 BC. Now we're moving on to 600 BC.
All right, so you've flown 2,000 years.
That's right. And you can keep throwing those numbers out to help the audience keep up.
Okay, so we're flying 2,000 years, and we've already established basically a thread, right? Like a thread of similarity between gods, ancient gods, and moving forward at this time of year. So basically, this time of year has been sacred for as far back as human civilization has basically been around. Is what you're establishing.
That's what I'm putting down.
I like it. I like it. All right. 600 BC.
600 BC, the Greeks celebrate Dionysus, the god of fertility and wine, using a baby to symbolize the new year and rebirth. Remember that? Remember Dionysus too, right? Mithra and Dionysus. And this baby new year was also practiced in Egypt at this time. 200 years later, 400 BC, in Northern Europe, we see evidence of the ancient Druids, who are priests of the Celts, admiring the resilience of the holly plant and regard holly mixed with evergreen boughs as a symbol of eternal life, boughs of holly, and consider hanging boughs of holly in the home good luck. The Druids also perceive mistletoe's parasitic nature as a symbol of love, and it becomes an emblem of fertility with special healing powers, and they also hang it in their homes. And what do we say about mistletoe, right? Kissy, kissy. Keep this ancient tradition in mind too.
Ancient tradition. I mean, this is crazy. Where are we now? Where are we? 600?
400 BC.
400 BC. Rome still has the Isles, I think, at this point, or maybe they haven't gotten to the Isles. I mean, that's not really part of it. But I guess what I'm getting at is that this is 400 years. We're using before Christ, right? That's the colloquial, but there is a more scientific thing for BC. But
Is it before the Common Era now?
Yeah, before Common Era. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is crazy that mistletoe, holly, and these in the songs, which are like the old English songs, is what I assume we pulled a lot of that from being American. That is insane that it goes back that far. That these things have like breadcrumbs almost have just sort of littered them, like embedded themselves in the tradition and just rolled all into one. Because I had no idea where any of this came from. I just assumed it was some, quaint English, pop, like what, holly, something like that. Is just the English doing their thing, I just it would never have occurred to me that it goes back before, like basically like Roman time London, that's insane to me. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had no idea how substantial these traditions were.
Yeah, ingrained. I mean, this is that's wild. Anyway.
All right. So you brought up the Romans. Let's go. It's 200 BC. The Roman Empire begins its nearly 600-year campaign to conquer Europe, which will suppress older seasonal rites practiced by groups like the Celts and their Druid priests. And this suppression will result in the Romans' own festivals to dominate the region and eventually influence the next generation of religious practices, which takes us to a key event in 133 BC, the first celebration of the Roman festival Saturnalia, right? Saturnalia. In the Northern Hemisphere, the shortest day and longest night of the year falls on December 21st or December 22nd and is called the winter solstice, as we mentioned before. Saturnalia began on December 17th and ended a week later, and it's changed per emperor, but generally that's how it worked. A week later on December 24th, that's when it concluded. And as you may have guessed, Saturnalia is dedicated to Saturn, the Roman god of time, abundance, agriculture, and renewal. Now, if you're unsure of how this all kind of works and how does it compare to the Greeks, quick on that. Saturn is the father of Jupiter. Saturn is like the Greek god Kronos, and Jupiter is like the Roman version of the Greek god Zeus. Okay, so Saturn is the father of Zeus, if that helps you, the Roman version of that. So to put it simply, Saturnalia is an ancient Roman pagan festival held in mid-December to honor the agricultural and renewal god Saturn during the winter solstice. And Saturnalia was the most popular holiday on the ancient Roman calendar because its roots were so deep in Rome's history and derived from older farming-related rituals of the winter solstice. You can only imagine how far this stuff goes back. So especially the practice of gift giving to the gods during the winter sowing season, right? You see that in every culture. You got to suck up to the gods so they treat you right. So in Rome, Saturnalia was a hedonistic time. And here are some of the customs there. Businesses and schools were closed so that everyone could participate in the holiday's festivities, just like we do today, right? For the most part. Romans decorated their homes and temples with boughs of holly, wreaths, and other greenery like fir tree branches to remind them that crops would grow again when the sun god was strong and summer would return. The wreath is circular, never-ending symbol of eternal love and rebirth. Holly also stands for immortality and cedar for strength. All of these plants were linked to Saturn, the agriculture god. And these red and green decorations will also evolve into symbolism of themselves, in and of themselves, and continue to repeat in culture after culture as we go through the Christmas time timeline. Now, role reversals were a big theme for Saturnalia. Dress codes were relaxed, and Romans wore colorful dinnerware instead of their traditional toga. I don't have any evidence that this has anything to do with it, but I can't help but think of like ugly Christmas sweaters or something. But people generally during the holidays, especially in the darker months, tend to kind of dress with brighter colors, kind of liven it up a little bit. So I understand the mentality there. Slaves and masters ate together, and slaves could even sit at the head of the table and masters would serve them. Don't know how often that happens, but it's cited in multiple sources. And everyone, including slaves, could participate in the festival's activities. Now, without getting too deep into it, I don't know to what degree, but it's, the blanket statement is it was open to everyone. And the activities included feasting and drinking and gambling, playing music. Gift giving cannot be emphasized enough. The exchange of presents include pottery, fruits, nuts, and candles, and making a concoction called satura, right after Saturnalia, I can only assume, that is similar to our fruitcake that basically never went bad, another eternal life symbol.
I think it's wild that you got to be really sure of yourself to let your slave run the house for a day and not think that they would want to continue doing that after the holidays. You got to really be sure of your station in life and your position in that society to be like, yeah, this will be fun. I'll serve you for a day. Don't get too used to it because it's turning. I mean, I think that's. I'm just saying that's a lot of confidence. It's kind of like when a hot actress plays an ugly character, that it's like there is confidence there to know that you are really attractive to play. You're just putting on the glasses or you're playing someone that's homely, but you're like I know I'm hot, so it's fine. No one's gonna think of me in this way.
I have my reservations about the claim in its broadest form. Okay. I don't know if it was dependent upon the relationship within the home. I don't know how that worked.
Do you think this is more like a tourist thing to say, come to Rome where we let our slaves have fun every once in a while? Do you think it was more like a pamphlet to be like, hey, we're not so brutish, us Romans.
It's hard.
We can have fun too.
You only know what's in the history books, and it's just
and it's
really
written by the victors.
Yeah, it's just really hard to know.
So you don't know.
It's so widely cited, and maybe I don't know. But okay. I'm just putting it out there. I'm with you on that one. I just don't know.
Okay.
All right. So now let's move on. Right now, let's move on forward out of BC to the year 0 AD, over a century after the first celebration of Saturnalia, when Jesus is born. 30 years later, 30 AD, the Roman Catholic ministry is founded, quote unquote, founded by Jesus. And some considerations as Jesus launched his ministry. Jesus is competing with the cult of Dionysus. Remember, the Greek god of wine. Now, both Dionysus and Jesus use wine as symbolism. In fact, and I found this to be pretty interesting, Jesus's water into wine story is thought to be a direct jab at Dionysus to show Jesus' superiority over Dionysus and steal away followers from that Roman cult. Interesting one, right?
Marketing 101, right?
It's really, really interesting stuff.
You got to fight for those converts.
You absolutely
you need
do.
To follow. You got to fight for them. You can't just go out there and just proclaim a savior and say that this guy is the best. People got to be like, yeah, you got to prove it, and that's one way to do it.
And that the fight for your converts is probably a good subtitle for this episode, because that is going to be what's happening this entire time. All right. So another rival to Jesus's ministry was Mithraism. So Mithra, remember, the Persian sun god from 1500 BC that we just went over. Jesus competes with Mithra in the capacity of a divine savior. And this competition helps recast Jesus as the wandering rabbi into Jesus Christ the Savior. And at this time, Mithraism was a religion very widespread throughout the empire with a strong following among the Roman legions. And as a religion of salvation, it was clearly competing with Christianity. So the date that the pagans celebrated Mithra was Mithra's birthday. Any idea what day Mithra's birthday is?
December 25th.
You got it, buddy. December 25th. And that date will certainly come up again.
I hope so. It's a Christmas episode. I hope so.
All right. So now a few years later, 33 AD, about Jesus is crucified by the Romans. Sadly, no one celebrates his birthday the following year. Skipping ahead, a century later, 136 AD, Rome adopts Mithra, the Persian sun god and savior god, into its pantheon of pagan gods, and it becomes one of many cults. Rome has a lot of gods, lots of cults. And for anyone unsure of where Persia is, and I'm not trying to talk over anyone's head, it's ancient Iran. Okay, so it's ancient Iran. That's, generally what we're talking about. So now, with this Roman adoption comes Mithra's birthday celebration on December 25th, right? It's a package deal. The whole mythos, the whole mythology comes with it. And I feel compelled to mention for the history buffs out there that at this time, Mithra has evolved into a Zoroastrianism and is considered something like an angel, but the Romans view Mithra more through a pagan lens, and they start to make it their own, as the Romans tend to do. So I don't want people to be like, it's not the Persian version, it's the other one. I know, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. And also, again, 136 AD, no one's celebrating Jesus' birthday a century later. Just wanted to point that out. So now, 274.
Does anyone know? I mean, how popular is Jesus at this point?
How popular is Jesus at this point? I mean, it's a thing.
Oh yeah, it's a thing, but it's like a weird cult. But I'm pretty sure.
But they're not celebrating his birthday.
Oh, that's what you're saying. I mean, that's important.
No one is celebrating.
Or not celebrating his birthday. Gotcha.
No one is celebrating his birthday.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay. Man, that's lonely.
There you go. Okay. So now, 274 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian declares December 25th the birthday of Jesus. Just kidding. He declares it the birthday of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. It's basically a celebration of the sun on the solstice. Members of the Roman upper class use this festival to fully Romanize the cult of Mithra and celebrate the birthday of their infant god as the unconquered sun on December 25th. Yes, we have another baby new year now, so remember it as it's in competition with Jesus as the savior. 6 years later, in 280 AD, a wealthy Greek wheat merchant and devout Christian is living in Patara, Lycia, which is modern-day Turkey, so that's what I'm going to say going forward. He and his wife have a son named Nicholas. After an epidemic suddenly kills his parents, Nicholas inherits his family's fortune and eventually becomes Bishop Nicholas of Myria in Lycia, where he spends his life and fortune traveling the countryside, helping poor and needy children and sailors. I'll leave it to you to put those pieces together, but he'll come up later on in the story.
Is this the origin of Krampus?
No.
Sad.
Nicholas. Nicholas.
I'm just seeing the evil Krampus. I'm just assuming, but I guess it's not. They're not connected.
No. All right. In 303 AD, Roman Emperor Diocletian directed the persecution of Christians, and as a result, the chief priest of the Christians in his town, Bishop Nicholas, was seized, tortured, chained, and imprisoned with other Christians. Nearly 10 years later, in 312 AD, Christianity has been dominating the Roman Empire under Emperor Constantine. And Constantine converts to Christianity. After Constantine accepts Christianity, Mithraism rapidly declines. And I can't help but pause on the decline of Mithraism, a religion, a belief system that was around for so long. And now humans begin the process of simply changing its category from religion to myth. And I just find it odd how humans decide what is divine and what isn't without any divine guidance.
Do you think the concept of myth, the concept of myth existed, but do you think is the word myth derived from Mithras?
That is actually an interesting question. I don't know, and I don't know.
You don't want to venture to say.
I don't even want to say.
It seems really coincidental that you're saying that this former mainstay religion that was competing with Christianity, called Mithraism, starts to fade into legend, and then we get the word myth today. I'm just saying it's a coincidence. It's a coincidence worth pointing out.
I think it's an interesting coincidence, and I know that when you must be hearing it. When I'm reading it to myself, I didn't put that together, but yeah, I could see why that connection would be made? I don't know. It's a really good question. Where does the
Yeah,
word
it's
myth
interesting.
come from? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
Constantine right now is ruling over the Eastern Roman Empire because Rome splits, and he takes the capital over to what is modern day Turkey. So that's why everyone's going on. This is all happening in Turkey right now, right? Because we're in the
Constantinople, right?
right. That's exactly. He renames it after himself and takes up Christianity as his like mainstay because he sees it as a political vice in order to unite the growing fervor that of Christianity under and more people under one banner of religion. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Okay. So the following year, in 313 AD, Constantine issues the Edict of Milan, which agrees to treat Christians benevolently within the empire. Bishop Nicholas, along with many other Christians, are set free. In 323 AD, 10 years after Constantine converts, Christianity becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire. Yes, still no one is celebrating Jesus's birthday. It's been over 300 years and no one is celebrating this dude's birthday. And I'm not even going to, I'm saying it to emphasize it, but it's for good reason. At the time, anything that wasn't Christian was considered pagan. Okay. I just want everyone to know that. It's not even like pagan was one thing or, pagan, it's used in a derogatory term, especially I think that's how most people would look at it now or feel about it now. But in reality, it's just anything that's not Christian. Anything that's not Christian is pagan.
Well, the way we view it, right? They didn't view pagan.
No, that's how it was then.
They used it then. Oh, well. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is. I mean, the word pagan itself, the English word that I am saying, I'm not sure. But the concept of separating yourself from all the other things and giving it a label seems to be a thing that it was.
Okay.
And so everything that isn't Christian is pagan. And birthday celebrations, like those sun gods, were seen as pagan. Christians didn't celebrate birthdays, right? And the pagans celebrate birthdays. Pagans are bad. And also, no one knew Jesus's true birthday because it's not in the Bible. So many early church priests were against the idea of celebrating Jesus' birthday at all.
Interesting. So it's kind of akin to Jehovah's Witness then, basically. Jehovah's Witnesses basically are closer to the original Christians but in this standard than everyone else.
It's funny how most people with extreme views are actually closer to the text.
It's coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence. Anyway, now it's 325 AD and Constantine convenes the Council of Nicaea to put a cohesive story together for Christians because, let's face it, up until this point, it's really just been a collection of personal accounts. It's just people writing stuff down, reiterating it, telling it verbally, and people need to bring it all together so that they could get their religion in order. And let's
just put it out there that so no one who was around at the crucifixion could possibly be alive at this point because we are 300 years
300
normal years, right? Not legendary biblical years. These are just 300 normal
real years.
And people,
300 real years.
No matter how sacred you think they are, they don't live that long. So everyone's been dead for a long, long time.
Right.
By the time this is starting to get written down, right? Is basically what we're saying.
Exactly. So Constantine convenes this Council of Nicaea to put together a cohesive Christian story, and none other than Bishop Nicholas of Turkey comes as a delegate to the council. And it's worth noting that not even after all the Jesus stories are evaluated and the final cut is collated, the transition from a pagan society to a Christian society was not entirely a smooth one. You have customs, traditions, and beliefs all merged with pagan beliefs. And for Romans, the concept itself of like absorbing and adapting is not really new, but it's this scale of absorbing and merging that was broader than any other thing they've ever done before. So now I want to jump ahead 25 years to the year 350. This is a big year. This is a big year for Jesus's birthday. And the church has been around now for about a quarter century with an arguably cohesive story to tell, at least compared to what it was before. And let's just get this out of the way. Bishop Nicholas dies, R.I.P. Bishop Nicholas. He's dead now. He died this year, 350 AD. But now regarding matters of the living, there's a big debate in the Christian community to grow. They need to grow membership, just like businesses need to grow today. You need to grow that membership. And Pope Julius I has a tough decision to make. And I think he just kind of decides, well, if you can't beat him, join him. He officially chooses to embrace hedonistic birthdays and chooses December 25th as Jesus's big day. Does it make sense? Politically, yes. Logically, no. Logically, why would shepherds be herding in the middle of the winter? But politically, the church needed to adopt and absorb traditions from the extremely popular pagan festivals, Saturnalia and, forgive this one, Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, or Day of the Birth of the Unconquered Sun. And if you remember, Mithra's birthday celebration for the upper class. Now, again, putting it plainly, what basically just happened here, folks, is Pope Julius I thought that he could attract more pagan converts to Christianity by allowing them to continue to celebrate on the same days as Saturnalia and Sol Invictus, but just change the name to the Feast of the Nativity, which is the original name for Christmas. He basically wanted to co-opt the pagan winter celebrations to spread Christianity. That is what happened here. And also just reminding everyone that this means that early Christmases were a drunken carnival-like celebration that resembled Mardi Gras more than what we see today. There's nothing conservative about Christmas when it started. So loosen up, people. When you talk about your version of Christmas being the right version, it was a hedonistic mess.
I mean, Jamie, have you ever been to a Christmas party?
I have.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's not like it's been completely scrubbed out of our cultural lexicon. It's just manifests itself in different ways. You know, you've got It's a Wonderful Life Christmas, and then you've got the ruckus. I mean, have you ever seen a pamphlet for those club Christmas parties?
I am not talking
Some
about...
people go wild on Christmas.
But that's not... So that's a good point, because I think that's more humans are humans. But when you're not in the moment, right? When it's, what is the old one, when the office party, when someone's like photocopying their butt or something, right? Like like the crazy stuff that happens at Christmas parties. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the judgment, the before or after, to say that's not how you celebrate Christmas. And these are the conservative values. These are the values of Christmas that we think that, you know, we should be demonstrating. I just think that when you start to really understand what Christmas is, what it was, how it came to be, where all these things came from, you realize that it's just a lot of your bias and nonsense that you're expelling onto other people. But anyway, I digress. Pagans and Christians at this time coexisted during this period, but it took effort to convince Romans to accept Christianity as Rome's official religion. Pagans already had a well-established symbolism ingrained in their celebrations and beliefs, as we've been discussing. The green, the red, the evergreen plants, the hollies, lots of renewal, rebirth, and life. So the Catholic Church had to find ways to adopt them and work them into their own stories. The church also had to eclipse the festivities of rival paganism that threatened Christianity's existence. It was clear that one of these religions was going to turn into myth. This time of year, the Romans celebrated Saturn, their agriculture god, and the birthday of their sun god, Mithras. While these festivals had religious roots, much of the divinity had been lost over time. And I think, you know, any modern person can relate to that. You don't go to church to get presents on Christmas, right? We have a lot of holidays that we just, I mean, to Antoine's point, we just use it as a reason to celebrate. And we really don't, you know, get too sentimental about why this thing even existed in the first place.
People love a party.
Exactly.
You know? And that's what the early Christians realized. They're like, look, no one's going to come to this boring religion where we're not partying. If we're going to get people, if we're going to get everybody in the fold, we got to start some parties. That you know, religion's about, especially it's the dead of winter. I mean, you're going to be solemn and quiet. I mean, you need something.
These things exist for a reason, right? These events, these things, they didn't only just pop up when people had big cities. They were always something that people needed to get them through this time. It just, you're going against human nature when you start suppressing some of these things. So the church's Nativity Festival was way more religious than the general merriment of Saturnalia. I think that is something everyone can agree with, and Antoine was kind of just pointing that out. And it's worth repeating that up until this point, Christianity's main holiday was Easter. Birthdays were pagan and considered improper. And now the church was pushing Jesus's birthday. And I do wonder how transparent this might have looked as a power grab, or was it a, hey, it's about time moment? Like, I wonder how it was received. You know what I mean? Like, the church did this. Like all of a sudden, we don't do birthdays. Pagans bad. We don't do birthdays. You do this. You do this. You do this. It's not working. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, happy birthday. How's it going? And how does that work? And do people are just like, hey, all right, it's about time. Thank you for doing that. Or were they like, you're clearly just trying to pull one over on us? Nice try.
I think it was a little bit of both, actually. I mean, you could watch a lot of media, especially the media that's set in the Viking era, where you could see a lot of the tumultuousness that came from the old way versus the new way, people becoming Christian versus people who were very much staunch, and then they became the minorities. And then Christians, the irony, Christians went from the ones being persecuted to the persecutors once they were in power. I mean, I'm just saying, it's not like it was a bloodless affair.
Oh no, and that's what I don't want to talk about. This, the huge factor that is being left out of this, because the podcast would be forever long.
Yeah.
Is conversion at the point of a sword.
Right.
And we're not going into that now. And that's kind of why I get into this. I think that these methods of co-opting some of the rights of older belief systems into your own to make conversion easier is more of, I'm going to force you to do this. You're going to go through the motions. Yeah. But over time, you're going to realize it's not actually that different, and it's not worth you dying over. And it's almost like, I'm going to entertain you enough to pacify you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it could be also that we've killed so many of you that it's exhausting. And
but then why even give them anything, right? I think they have to give them something because you don't want a rebellion. You don't want a rebellion.
Exactly.
So you need to pacify them, right? You're going to force them into this, but then you need to contain them because you need to move on to your next conquest. You can't keep going back to the things you've already conquered.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, dead people don't pay taxes, and that's one of the things Constantine realized, and that's part of the charm and the political, I guess, genius of some certain figures of history is that they realize that scorched earth is not profitable. And if you're going to get people to pay taxes to uphold these roads and to fund your armies and your wars, you need them to live, and you need them to be working happy, as opposed to continually always starting riots and bloodshed in the streets because the two religions can't commingle. So there are many ways to go about it, and different leaders throughout history took varying approaches. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can't get, what is it? You can't get blood from a stone, and in this case, the stone is money, and yeah,
can't argue with that.
Can't believe you, buddy.
Anyway. Cannot argue with that. So, besides making this new holiday about a birthday, what else did the church assimilate from pagan rites to make conversion seamless for the new imperial religion? Saturnalia's gift giving, right? We went over that. The church wanted to completely do away with all pagan traditions, but the fear of backlash in the case of Saturnalia was very real for people at the time. So instead of giving gifts in the name of Saturn, we got Christmas gifts as an homage to the three wise men bringing little baby Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh, right? That's why we have that. And Saturnalia's red and green color scheme was kept, but the meaning was tweaked so that the red represented the blood of Jesus and the green represented the crown of thorns, both from his crucifixion. Then, 4 years later, just over 3 centuries after his death in 354 AD, Jesus had his first birthday party. Happy birthday, big guy. With the first celebration of Christmas. Yeah.
Jesus' birthday.
354 AD. All right. So now we're going to go forward a little bit to 410 AD. The Roman Empire recalls its legions from Britannia, and pagan Germanic tribes resettle the area and spread. Also, some Romans are still celebrating Saturnalia. So I just want you to be aware that, it's not seamless. It's not quick. These transitions take time. And also, at this time, in Germanic pagan Europe, like Scandinavia, the first documentation of the Norse celebrating Yule during the winter solstice pops up, but it's much likely older than 410 AD. It's much likely an older tradition. This is just a documentation of it. And in recognition...
Very much so, yeah.
Exactly. And in recognition of the return of the sun, fathers and sons would bring home large logs, which they would set on fire. And by large logs, I mean they brought home an entire tree, trimmed all the branches off of it, cut the trunk, and stuck the big end of the trunk into the fireplace. And the people would feast until the log burned out, which would take, on average, about 12 days. The 12 days of Christmas.
Look at that.
Right?
My, oh my. You're just like blowing minds all over the place. I did not know that is where that comes from.
That's
Good
where
to
that
know.
comes from.
Good
Right?
to know.
So the Norths also believe that each spark from the Yule log was represented a new pig or calf that would be born during the coming year. And now for some more symbolism. In Germany, during this holiday, Yule, they spelled it J-U-L, what Yule, people were terrified of the white-haired, bearded pagan god Odin during the midwinter holiday. They believed Odin flew through the night sky like someone else we know, but he didn't say ho, ho, ho. Odin was deciding who would prosper or perish. The ultimate naughty or nice list. If you were caught outside, he'd drag you to the afterlife for judgment. So to play it safe, a lot of Germans just stayed inside.
Where it's warm and where you're less likely to die of pneumonia.
Exactly.
Sounds about right.
Right? The elders knew best. We talked about that in a previous episode. The elders just lie to you, tell you what you need to hear to keep you safe. Talked about that before.
Krampus is real. Krampus is Odin. So funny.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, he's a mix, right? He's a mix of both. And so in terms of decorating, Europeans at this time hung evergreen boughs over their doors with and windows to ward off witches, ghosts, evil spirits, and illness. Candles and stars stood in for the sun during the darker season, and the light symbolized hope, warmth, and rebirth. Snowmen were popular at this time. Jingle bells were a functional display as their ringing drove off evil spirits. And, which I found really interesting, they could warn people to move out of the way because you can't hear horse hooves in the snow.
Or reindeer. Because then people actually they did use reindeer to get around in certain cultures, right?
I don't have that in my notes.
Oh. Well, I'm just saying this all makes sense now. The Santa Claus flying through the sky gets basically gets a marketing makeover to be good as opposed to bad, and then the reindeer, so you hear them coming, is because you couldn't hear someone coming. That's wild. Yeah, it's really a lot of this is it's actually really fun. It's actually a lot of fun. Actually, I'm really enjoying learning all this. This is adding some real joy to this holiday. I'm really enjoying some of the learning the idea how all these traditions have really come to get mixed into one. You know, it's like one ring to rule one Jesus to rule them all.
There you go.
Is essentially what Christmas has become. That's wild.
I can't argue with that. Okay, so at this time, also, mischievous elves are cropping up in Scandinavian, Celtic, and German folklore, and mistletoe makes a comeback and brings its perception of healing with it. In Norse mythology, the gods used mistletoe to resurrect Odin's son Baldur. So Frigg, Baldur's mother and goddess of love, made mistletoe a symbol of love and vowed to kiss anyone who passed under it. Is it coincidence? Who am I to say? But everyone seems to love to kiss under the mistletoe.
Is it coincidence? The answer is no. Frigg. Like
also, Frigga.
I thought it was Frigga. But
Frigga is the anglicized version I was reading, and I tried to just be proper, but if it's going to cause confusion, just wanted to say it as well.
Okay, cool.
So moving along in years, it's 432 AD, and the Feast of the Nativity, the original name of Christmas, spreads to Egypt. In 450 AD, a brief ideological rebellion within the church as a bishop campaigns in the opposition of Jesus' birthday being on December 25th, because those darn Romans are still celebrating Saturnalia and the unconquered sun. And the good bishop could not stomach Jesus sharing any association with a heathen festival. You know, do I really need to say
maybe
it?
Then you shouldn't have put his birthday on the heathen festival. I mean, that could have been one way to start with it.
His campaign was unsuccessful, so it doesn't matter. A little blip in history for you.
Okay.
So moving on, 596 AD, a century into the Middle Ages, and Christianity had, for the most part, replaced pagan religion across Europe. And thanks to the Gregorian mission by Pope Gregory I, the church began converting Britain's Anglo-Saxons. The following year, in 597 AD, Pope Gregory I sent a letter to Abbot Mellitus in England instructing the church to replace pagan gods with Christian saints and swap pagan sacrifices for religious feasts so that the dedication of the slaughter goes to the glory of God and not some demonic offering. A few years after that, in 601 AD, Pope Gregory I wrote to Mellitus again, telling him not to stop the ancient pagan festivities, but to adapt their rites for the church. So heathen impulses became Christian impulses. The church indeed needed to make the transition of converts as easy as possible, and here are a few ways that they did this. Yule was the name of the German solstice festival, but the church just took it. They just took it and said, now it means Christmas time, which is where we get Yule, Yule Log, Yule Tide. They were just like, hey, it's lost in translation. This is what we got. Medieval Germans had been leaving out milking cookies during Yule season in hopes of Odin looking favorably upon them. So the church tweaked this, and instead of flying around looking for corrupt souls to punish, the church took Odin's likeness, merged it with a jollier fellow from long ago, a fellow by the name of Nicholas from Turkey, and Saint Nick still judged people as Odin did, but the results were less consequential. Coal or presents, just like Bishop Nicholas did back in the day. And they kept the milk and cookies for the kids. And this is where we get the idea of Christmas cookies.
I love it. I love it. It's all coming together.
In 604 AD, Pope Sabinian officially sanctioned the use of bells in Christian churches, those pagan tools to ward off pagan demons and celebrate pagan birthdays. Now these Christmas bells were used to celebrate Jesus's birthday. Interesting.
I love that we're still working on the marketing plan. They're like, there's still some. It's 600 years later, and we're still trying to convert these pagans. And what else can we give them?
I know, isn't it just like it just keeps chipping away at their? I mean, I would say integrity. Like they have this belief system, and they just keep giving. They just keep giving. Like
they're holding out for the old ways, and and they're just. Here's one more thing for you. Look, we'll take your bells. What else can we take from you to make you convert? Because we can't kill you because dead people don't give money to the church.
There you go. So that was 604 AD. Let's take a big leap forward to 1233 AD. German monks get the credit for creating gingerbread cookies as Christmas replaced all the solstice celebrations. The feasting continued, but now with the addition of desserts. So advancements in cooking, as well as more economical trade, made spices like nutmeg and cinnamon more affordable, as well as butter, lard, and sugar. At this time, ginger was also making its way over to Europe from Asia, and this led to gingerbread men, cookies, and bread. And when Christians began replacing pagan winter festivals with Christmas, bishops across Europe requested certain hymns to be sung at these Christmas services. Many composers wrote their own Christmas carols. St. Francis of Assisi put on nativity plays, which included canticles that told the story of Christ's birth. The audience would sing along. And this gave way to Christmas carols that we know and love today. And eventually, bells even branched out as personal musical instruments that could be used by Christmas carolers. And boy, times they are a-changin'. From no Christmas celebrations, no birthday celebrations, no bells. That's for birthdays. I mean, they're just handing them out to everyone, and you're all over the streets ringing your bells, singing happy birthday to Jesus.
Can't stop a good time.
That's great. So 1380 AD, the first documented snowman appears, but mankind has probably been making snowman for as long as there's been snow, and we cited that earlier. 1411 AD, the first Christmas tree was used in either Estonia or Latvia. No one can agree. They both claim, it happened in one of those places. 1494 AD, the Renaissance humanist Sebastian Brandt recorded his Das Narrenschiff, the Ship of Fools, the custom of placing branches of fir trees in houses. Around 1511 AD, Christmas had an evolution. German Christians brought the trees inside their homes as a symbol of everlasting life after Martin Luther allegedly brought his inside and decorated it with candles to recreate the starlight shining through trees that he saw on one fateful afternoon walk or evening walk. And at this time, Germans were using Christmas tree trimmings to create wreaths that led to garland, which spawned into its own thing I won't go into. Queen Elizabeth I of England tries to take credit for the first gingerbread men being made, representing foreign dignitaries. She would serve the dessert too at fancy dinners, even though we just went over the German monks did it a few centuries earlier. Michelangelo was commissioned to build a snowman for the ruler of Florence. In Holland, Dutch children placed wooden shoes by the hearth in hopes that they would be filled with a treat. And we went over this last year, folks, but the Dutch spelled St. Nicholas as Sint Nicholas, which became corrupted to Sinterklaas, and finally in Anglican to Santa Claus. Now, because of the Protestant Reformation and the rejection of the Catholic St. Nick, it might be painful, but we owe the survival of this symbol to the Dutch that kept it going, although not without its controversy, as we discussed last year. See Black Pete, folks. And to round off the 16th century evolution of Christmas, we have the common abbreviation of Xmas. The abbreviation comes from the Greek word for Christ. I don't know how to say it. Christos, which starts with an X, right? It's X Christos.
You said it right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Christos. Yeah.
And Europeans began using it almost immediately, and the shorthand stuck, and it's been here ever since. I never knew that.
I didn't know that either.
And now we're at 1659 AD, and what will eventually be America. The Puritans are getting irked by all of this merrymaking, and the General Court of Massachusetts enacted a law making any observance of December 25th a penal offense. You could be fined for hanging Christmas decorations. I repeat, from 1659 to 1681, anyone caught celebrating Christmas in the colony would be fined 5 shillings. It's the original war on Christmas. Republicans can blame the Pilgrims.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Pilgrims were like, those Europeans are having way too much fun. We don't want any of that. They're partying. They're fornicating.
They make you feel weird. All these things.
I mean, the Europeans are the crazy ones. Then they came to America, right? I mean, that's why. I mean, we talk about our conservatism in America, but it literally was. This country was founded by people who thought the Europeans were just too crazy with their party and their merrymaking. They wanted a simpler life. They wanted to go back. They wanted to go back to the original roots.
Yeah.
Of unfun Christian, no Christmas, no gingerbread men, no snowmen, no drinking, no holly. Get rid of all that pagan crap. Just observe the Lord's Day and meditate on one's sins. Sounds like a great time. Sounds like something I'd want to come over for.
Yeah, I can't believe no one wanted it. I can't believe that didn't catch on.
I can't believe you had to leave in order to create it in the New World.
All right. So while eventually the fines went away, the sentiment persisted as Puritan legacy was under threat until an influx of German and Irish immigrants in the 19th century finally put this issue to bed for good. Christmas was here to stay. See, Republicans, without immigrants, we wouldn't have Christmas. So there you go. All right. So before we get ahead of ourselves, because I just talked about the 19th century, I want to go back to the 1700s AD. Against Puritan wishes, St. Nick enters American pop culture in New York when Dutch families gathered to honor the anniversary of the death of Santa Claus, which is a little different than Christmas, but hey, I'll take it. And with it brought the Christmas sock tradition, which is basically St. Nick drops coins, and some stories oranges, into poor girls' stockings so she can afford a dowry and get married. That's pretty much the gist of it all. So oddly, the actual St. Nicholas has no ties to reindeer whatsoever. Being from Turkey and everything, they don't really have any reindeer there. So early versions of Santa show him on a white horse. They can't even fly. Can't even fly. And I found that to be, interesting, because it's something like that we can kind of latch on to. Everything else that I've been going over is, it's kind of like you're following it. But this is something that is modern and we can all latch on to. And we never want anything to change today, right? We want to freeze everything in time. And if we would have done that as a peoples, as a species, at any point, we would never have had the reindeer, the flying stuff. We would have had this dude from Turkey on a white horse that can't even fly. And so, be open-minded when a new audience comes up and they want to put a different spin on something that might just be the next best thing for the story. Anyway. As early as
I don't know, Jamie. I don't know. I'm going to disagree here because I don't know, the simplicity of a man just walking down your neighborhood with his white horse, like a white knight kind of, or what is it, like the sheriff coming to town? I think there is something to that. Is it better to have this verbose caricature of a human being that's like flying through the sky and delivering presents through? I kind of see where the Grinch is coming from. It's a bit much. It's just a bit much, It's like, It's like, how far does this need to go? I mean, the simplicity of a dude just on a white horse giving out presents while he's walking down the street. I don't know about that. I don't know.
Visiting poor girls and putting oranges in their socks. That's what you want to stick with on the white horse. So is it a package deal? You're going to keep the whole thing, or just the white horse part?
I think you've made an excellent point.
Okay.
I rescind my comments.
So, as early as 1747, Moravian Germans in Pennsylvania had a community tree in the form of a wooden pyramid decorated with candles. Now, in 1821 AD, the first recorded account of Santa's reindeer appeared in a 16-page booklet with a poem titled A New Year's Present to the Little Ones from 5 to 12, Part 3. And the writer remained anonymous, but publisher William Gilly relayed that the author knew of such animals, meaning reindeer, from his mother's account of the Arctic. So it's like completely random that we even have this reindeer thing, because this dude was like, hey, my mom saw reindeers in the Arctic. I'm going to put that in here. And, this pamphlet gives us that. And it just blows my mind how this stuff creeps in. So a year after that, 1822, Episcopal minister Clement C. Moore composes his famous poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, which was later published as The Night Before Christmas. Moore is credited with creating the modern image of Santa Claus as a jolly fat man with a beard delivering toys, riding around the sky, using flying reindeer, and he gives the reindeer a head count and names, right? Further solidifying that mythology. And at this time, or 1800s, right, there's a lot of elf activity associating it with Santa, ripping it out of the old European folklore. So that's just where it's coming from. 1843 AD, English author Charles Dickens popularizes the traditional phrase Merry Christmas in his 19th century story, A Christmas Carol. The saying caught on in America, but the Brits reverted back to Happy Christmas as they thought it was just a bit more sophisticated. A better seasonal expression. And oh, they're so smug.
Yeah, that is probably the most elitist thing I've ever heard of. Merry is just so low class. What is better is happy. Have a happy Christmas. Yeah, yes, that's better. That's so much better. I mean, we don't have plumbing really, and Parliament smells like ass because there's sewage in the streets. But if there's one thing we could do, it's vernacular. We could really get in on our high horse and dictate how people should say things. That makes a lot of sense. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Yeah. So 1846, Queen Victoria and her German Prince Albert were sketched in the Illustrated London News, standing with their children around a Christmas tree. And what was done at court immediately became fashionable, not only in Britain, but in America too. Thus, the Christmas tree had arrived in America. And not to forget, those Puritans, they still didn't want to accept the pagan symbol, though, and they viewed all the celebration as unholy. And, I do admire their grit. It has been quite a long time, and they're still at it. They're still sticking to their guns. So,
misery loves company. They like to be unhappy, and they're like you said, they're sticking to it.
It makes them feel alive. It makes them feel alive.
You could live on hate. I do think it becomes a bit of a fuel.
It's interesting, right? Instead of just accepting the merriment, they are thriving on the hatred of the merriment.
Yeah.
It's one way to go.
It's one way to do it.
All right. So 1870 AD, December 25th, Christmas Day is made a federal holiday in the United States. Around this time, fruit cakes are the height of indulgence during the Christmas season. Call back to Saturnalia 133 BC. So 1881, illustrator Thomas Nast gave Santa his lasting visual impression by drawing him thousands of times in Harper's Weekly. Then in 1931, artist Haddon Sundblom solidified the link between red, green, and Christmas with his interpretation of Santa in Coca-Cola ads, as the company insisted that Santa wears a red branded outfit. And it had a little green trim and I think green lettering and stuff. So the stars really aligned on all the buildup of the theming and the symbolism, and then the branding of Coca-Cola. Also, this is the year that the first Christmas tree is placed in Rockefeller Center. 1939, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer appears. And that brings us to today, 2023 AD. For over 1,600 years, people have been celebrating Christmas. But humans have been celebrating the rebirth of the sun for at least 1,000 years before the arrival of the man called Jesus. Today, Christmas is undeniably a pagan winter solstice holiday, even if its origins are forgotten or ignored. The church repackaged a pagan solstice winter holiday and called it Christmas, another divine baby new year, the anniversary of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, a spiritual leader whose teachings form the basis of their religion. But all of the holiday's traditions, customs, symbolism, and even the date itself are derived from much older pagan belief systems that were practiced by the first Christians to convert in that time. And they did things with exchanging gifts, decorating Christmas trees, using greens and reds, attending church, sharing meals with family and friends, and of course, waiting for Santa Claus to arrive to judge us. Without those pagan customs, what is Christmas? And with all that in mind, I can't help but say that Christians base their customs on the older beliefs of their target audience, and those beliefs were legit religions at the time. It would be like Christians adopting a Hindu or a Muslim or a Scientology belief today to steal their followers. And for one reason or another, Christianity won. I have won them over. And we now call those once very real religions myths. And what I'm saying here, folks, is that it's all made up and it changes all the time. And why it's important to know all of this is that when it comes to the sanctity of Christmas and how it is observed and the various attempts to preserve it, to freeze it in time, it's all made up and was a huge compromise to fit the population of that time. This means it can change to fit the population of our time and continue to evolve with society far into the future. That's the learning we should take from Christmas and the tradition that we should hold dear.
Well done. Well done, my friend. That is a fantastic and exhaustive run through of our history with this holiday. Wow. Bravo.
I got 5 quick bonus symbol stories. Should take me like maybe a minute or two if you want.
Yeah, go for it. Sure, go for it. I have a few questions too. So what is it better to do the questions before your bonuses or to
I don't know. Maybe the bonuses will answer them.
Okay, fine. Let's do it. Do the bonuses and then I'll ask my questions if they're not answered.
All right. These just didn't really fit cleanly into the timeline or the kind of theme of linking it to paganism, but
Okay.
there were meanings behind some of the Christmas symbols. And want anyone to think that I left them out. So the Christmas pickle, you might have seen these in ornaments and stuff, right? I certainly have never really thought much of it other than that's weird. Some claim it's of German origins. Others say it comes from a U.S. Civil War soldier that recovered from starvation after eating a pickle during Christmas time. And there's even a tale of St. Nicholas saving 2 boys from drowning in a pickle barrel. Poinsettias, a plant native to Mexico. A 19th century U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Joel Roberts Poinsett, brought the plants to America, and they were named after him. And for some reason, they became a Christmas flower. I'm going to say it's because they were red. They named them after him. Good for him. That's where those come from. Eggnog. British aristocrats came up with the winter drink and added brandy and sherry to keep it from spoiling. When it came over to the American colonies in the 1700s, colonists subbed the pricey liqueurs for rum. At the time, rum was also called grog, so bartenders named the drink egg and grog. Later, it became eggnog after the wooden noggins that were the mugs that they were served in. Candy canes, the shape of a shepherd's hook, and Jesus is often referred to as a shepherd. The story goes that a choir master gave them to choir boys to occupy them during long Christmas services. It was also said to be given out to kids in the audience to keep them quiet during Mass. This is said to go back as far as like the 1670s, but once the American capitalism got a hold of them in the 1920s, they were mass-produced and a Christmas star was born. They were also originally white, and the red stripes apparently represent blood and Christ's sacrifice, and the white strands is for his purity. But this seems like an afterthought, in a lot of places that I was reading were like dispelling this and saying there's really no evidence of that. Okay. And the last one, and honestly I found to be the most interesting, is tinsel. Tinsel comes from an Eastern European tale of the Christmas spider. Now, I'm not going to go into the story of the Christmas spider, but I've never heard of it. But it's a whole thing. And basically, tinsel is derived from that story and represents the spider's web. I didn't really like tinsel before.
No.
I don't really like it now.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy tinsel, but you must really not like it now that it's associated with spiders.
There you go. We did a whole episode on that, folks. Check it out at the Halloween one. But that's it. Those are the bonus stories.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. So, quick questions. They were not answered. So when Martin Luther brought in the tree for the first time, and he has this beautiful, lush, evergreen, not really evergreen, but it's a beautiful, lush tree, and he wants it to sparkle and shine like shine bright like a diamond. He's putting candles in this tree, right? And then and somehow the tree is holding up these candles, because I think I've seen some imagery of this, like in some like old like medieval reliefs. And as the tree dries out, because I don't know, did they put them in water in order to keep them alive?
Doubt it.
I doubt it as well. So
I also think they probably didn't hold them as long as people do today.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying the tree is drying out as the time marches on to the eve of Christmas, and I wonder on that final Christmas Eve how many people's houses burned down with putting all those candles in the tree.
I'm sure people learned.
Yeah, you think they learned quickly? Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't know, but I am sure there are many casualties and perhaps fatalities from that. I mean, you would think that people would know, but people make dumb mistakes today, so I don't know. What I will say,
but the people of Texas lost power during the winter because we love our infrastructure in this country, and everyone was bringing their grills inside to keep warm. There were a few hazards as a result of that.
What I will say is that the European Christmas trees tend to be around like 3-4 feet. Only the Americans do the floor to ceiling ones. The Europeans don't do that.
I'm thinking that's even all right. Fine, all right. So you're not getting a bonfire indoors, but even so, still seems. Like
no bearing on the flammability and what the fire hazard. No, it's still a huge
Are you saying to this day Europeans have smaller Christmas trees than we do?
I don't know to today.
Okay, but just back in the day,
exported a lot of bad habits, so
right. Okay,
a lot of excessiveness.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, America.
Yeah. So what else you got?
I actually think that was the main. That was the main one. There are a few others probably, but that was the main one.
All right. Well, that is the Christmas episode.
I love it, Mary. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas. Let's steal it back. Happy Christmas.
I don't want to steal it. I want to make it new. I want to evolve it. I'm going to say Happy Yule Log from now on. Happy
Yule. Yeah, something like that. We'll figure it out.
Happy Yule time. Happy Yule day.
Yule yippee.
That's just hard to say 3 times fast.
It is.
Yule yippee. It just makes the lips like purse a little.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it. Next Christmas we'll have something.
All right. Well, man, it's a fantastic episode. I hope everyone has a merriness to whatever you're calling this portion of your holiday, because again, it's not like Christianity is the only religion on this planet that has time around this period. So
everyone does.
Everyone does.
That's the point. Everyone does. And that's the whole thing of the comment I made in the beginning. All the interconnectivity, everyone's borrowing from one another. I'm sure if you lay this all out on paper and put it in a grid, you would see more commonalities than differences.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Well, all right, everyone. Happy Yule Log. Retraction. Ow.